Hi, I am Mark Gardner and I welcome you to my studio OX for Sound, Oxford Sound in Oxfordshire. I'm also the guy, singer, guitar player and songwriter in the band Ride. Welcome to Oxford Sound Studio. This is my final studio. I'm not going to build any more studios after this. Prior to this, I was working in my attic in my little house that I lived in Oxford before, and then in a garden of a former partner. And with the lookout that I was always trying to find a space which I could turn into a studio, which is not easy. The area, we're in an Oxfordshire area, and the bands used to come close to this area because over the fields that way was Radiohead's old studio as well, called Courtyard. So that was a place that we came and used from time to time, as did quite a lot of the Oxford bands back then. So I was a little bit familiar with the area, but now I'm very familiar with the area because, of course, once the studio was built, and then before I knew what was going on, we were into COVID. And then it was like, what the hell have I done? I've kind of got a studio, and it's like, now it's COVID and nobody's coming, and it's not one of the best business plans I've sort of made in my life. So I was pretty much locked down here then, all throughout the whole COVID thing, which was quite good in a way because I managed to still get quite a lot of remote recording work coming in. I mean, I would have probably been finished had it not been for the fact that you can work remotely from a studio. So I still managed to do lots of mixing work and lots of mastering work. And yeah, so it kind of helped me survive through that. And then also through that time, that's it, I was just locked in here. So through the many thousands of hours, you get to know your gear pretty well and how it works. From the previous studio, I started to collect bits of outboard gear. So the Universal Audio 6176 I had in my old studio, the SSL compressor bus, also I had that at my previous studio. The Culture Vulture as well. So I was collecting bits and pieces. I had in my older studio, what really changed it for me was kind of, I was always working in the box, and I love digital, and I was always brought up using Logic Pro, so that was my DAW of choice. But I was always sort of battling with, when you A/B against the sound of records, which I did a lot as part of your learning and part of your ear training. I wanted to, just couldn't quite work. It seemed to be to have to do a lot of work to get that, realize that space, width, warmth, depth. Something for me was always kind of missing. So I had a Neve Summon mixer initially that came in to my older studio, and that really changed the game a lot for me. I was like, okay, now I'm getting that width, depth, warmth, which I was battling to sort of get from just within the box. Yeah, so actually thinking about it, I did do a couple of vocals, I think, on This Is Not a Safe Place on the previous Ride album here, and Errol Alkan came in. So, but during that album, this place was sort of being finished, so it wasn't really up and running in that way. So there were a couple of bits, but time-wise, it worked really well then for Interplay. I mean, the whole pandemic thing threw so much unexpected madness into it was just really difficult period for everybody, and obviously us at that time. So as the rules started to, and we started to come through the pandemic and vaccinations and stuff, then we started to be able to get together in here. And it was nice. It just, in the depth of some of those lockdowns, I did start to think, will we ever actually play live again? Will you actually, because it seems to be that the worst thing to do is to get lots of people together in a room. It's just the press at that time was so bad that you're like, well, we're kind of finished. At times you just think it's sort of game over for gigs and bands. And anyway, having kind of come through that, the guys started to come in, and we really just started to. I think it was nice to feel that we had a space where where we were just sort of freer to have some time without the feeling that the clock's ticking and the money clock's ticking up, because studios are quite pricey to be in. So it's kind of somewhere that I felt we kind of made our home for a period. I suppose in my mind, I felt that the previous albums happened quite fast, and I'm certainly through some of it I felt that I missed the boat on certain things, because it was sort of seemed to be quite rapidly recorded, and I'm naturally a bit of a slower person, I think, and I like to sit with things a bit longer, and I'm not very good at systematic kind of recording in that way. I kind of just, I don't know, I've never, I was always at school kind of homework last minute sort of guy, and never that well prepped for things. So for me it was good, and I felt a lot more involved from the off with this album. And obviously at that time we didn't have an engineer or producer, and I then just took on the role, more engineering. Everyone within the band, you've got loads of ideas and great with production ideas anyway, so that wasn't on me, but just miking stuff up, engineering, and just getting a lot of these initial ideas that we were playing in the room and in here together down. And it felt good. I think it felt really good, because I think in my mind I felt that that's how, when we started as a band and we were in the sort of drama school at Banbury Art School, it's a place that we could rehearse in. A lot of the early tunes were formed a little bit in that way, where we were not feeling the pressure of time again, and we just jammed and we just played. Everything for me about this space is to sort of people to walk in and feel that you're in a kind of relaxed zone, because I think that's half the battle in a way, that the world outside is left outside, and then you're in a space where you can just focus, you're not really disturbed. And I think it was really important for us to do that. And I think what always happens when we're in a room together, and hence the title of the album, the interplay thing happens. So the roles were a little bit different, because as I said initially, I kind of had one hat thinking, like, is everything being recorded here, because I think that we're getting a good take of something, and just be my luck to know that there's not a mic on or something. So there's that kind of whole engineering side, which I was trying my best to sort of keep up with that. But it works, yeah. I mean, basically, and I was sort of jumping a little bit between the rooms to be able to play on a lot of the sessions as well. But also in a weird sort of way, because I'd kind of got all of this under control, it wasn't sort of boggling my mind so much. It feels almost like an instrument to me, faders and the way of bringing things in, out, and just the whole recording process. It becomes a creative tool once you've demystified the science a little bit. Being known, as you say, as the kind of very guitar-heavy band, and recording back in the day, I mean, I used to be utterly obsessed with amps and certain guitars in that recording process. And of course, when you go into studios back in the day, you didn't even think that actually with the mics making a huge difference, what mics you were using. Of course, because didn't have an engineering head on at all. I just thought, guitar, got an amp, and that's it, and it's got, so we were definitely obsessed with that guitar thing. I mean, something that happens, I think, with bands that are so obsessed and, or known, or maybe for the wall of guitar sound, is that you gravitate as time goes on to synth world. And I think that's always been there with a lot of the music that we really were into. and a lot of influential music from the 80s and people that we listen to. And I mean, you know, I can still think about Depeche Mode, just Tears for Fears, you know, Cure, you know, all those, the Cure and bands that hugely influential from back in the day. And I think something happens when you're, and with us as well, when you're sort of a bit kind of like, okay, that's a guitar band, then you start, like I say, you get into synth world more. So naturally synths have come in more, whereas I think some of those more synth heavy bands that start the, you know, 80s, 90s bands seem to go more into guitars as they go on. It's just this sort of thing that happens. But I think guitar-wise, completely different the way I think about guitars now and sounds and amps now that having a studio, because and mixing, I'm doing lots of mixing, because you realise it's a sort of, I'm thinking about it more as in frequencies, and I think I always try to do most of the work at the amp side, and I'm putting tones and bass and things on an amp now, thinking more so what I would cut away or add at a mix stage. So I just try to do as much as I can. I would take my time. I'm a bit of a slow setter up guy, because I do take more time to with amps especially, to sort of try and get the sound as close as I want it from straight from an amp. Yeah. So there's just less, which is silly because you've got this, you want to play with the buttons and move things around, but I guess that's, yeah, that has changed, because like I say, when you have no real knowledge of consoles and actually recording and mixing, which was how I started in Ride, you're not thinking about the end result. You're just all you're worrying about is your guitar and amp, really. That's it. Yeah, on synth corner, I'd got the Voyager in my last studio, and the JP 8000, the Roland, and the Juno. So they were the only sort of synths I had then, and the drum machine, the TR8 I like to muck around with, and the you know, SH. So they kind of came in, and then a bit of a game changer was the Moog one that was brought in early doors, when soon after that kind of come together, and my friend Michael that brought that in, he'd been dropping them into a few studios around the place, and it's just one of those where you start to play it, and then you realise that can't leave. I've got to have one of those, and so totally for the soundtrack bits and pieces that have been done here, that's always on it, and also with the Ride album, that figured a lot as well with the Ride album, for sure. And it's just, again, it's just that thing where synth corner, we call it, whatever, it's just messing around with sounds again, and again, that's people that were always obsessed with, you know, the guitar amp thing. So it's just that it just feels like a extension of sonic extension, just to play around, and in a way, that feeling for me, I always like that feeling that I don't feel particularly an expert in anything really, in anything here whatsoever, but the bit that works for me is the feeling that it's like the kid in the toy shop sort of way, that you just play with things. In some ways I still don't really feel I know what I'm doing on any of it, but in the end I find just sounds and things that work for me and my ears, and then you just go with it, and then at a certain point you feel moved by the sounds that you've put down and what you're hearing, and then you've got to hit that point where you leave it. It's done, you know, and that's hard, because you can fiddle around forever, and that just doesn't work. You can't run a studio in that way, and also you would drive yourself mad as well. So I think with better gear, I get to that place, the sweet spot place with mixes and mastering a lot quicker, and in a lot more enjoyable way, because I don't feel like I'm battling with, as I was before, with rooms that didn't really work and sound right. You know what I mean? It's just all the stuff I used to battle with. that's what I meant to say earlier. I guess I wanted to feel that in a room with the right music and when things are good, that then the art or whatever it is, it can fly. You know, you're not, whereas I think before the wings were always burnt at a certain point because things would fall down, but now I feel that it's a situation where it can fly now, and if something isn't right, then that's just you're having an off day. You know, I can't blame bad gear or a bad room anymore or anything. It's just like it's all there. It's there, and in a way, because it's become part of my way of working now. You know, I wanted the chance to feel that I'm in a space where I could sort of take off in that way sonically, and that's also that wonderful feeling I have with music, and whether that's whether you're writing songs or with mixing or whatever, when you're here, but in your mind, you're going places, you know, in your ears and your mind, and that's why I love music, the transportational effect of sonics and what it can do. I love that feeling. It's the sort of feeling of going away, you know, on a sonic holiday or whatever, you know, without leaving the room, lots. And, you know, and I guess a big reason you wanted to be in a band in the first place is because it's escapism. It's just, you know, it's purely escapism. It's trying to escape the kind of, the way that maybe more my dad, late father, whatever, would have wanted me to go, with a more, slightly more normal existence and probably more stable, which he's probably right about now. It was always a bit of an escape for me, music, and Ride really was great with that. Just to find your own way, and because I realised it was taking a lot of risks and the odds were stacked against you, that's the stuff that focuses you more and more to try and make whatever it is you're doing work. The Essential for me has become my lovely AWS 948. I love it. To have a console, you know, everything feeds through it. I also love the way the G-Bus compression works. Something really special happens with that, with the glue, the punch, which of course SSL consoles were famous around America for the hip hop boys, because they all used to rave about the SSL compression bus and what it does. And yeah, I totally get that. I mean, and the outboard sort of did it, but not in the same way that it does, you know, internally within a console. I think be prepared to spend a lot of time working on it, and be focused. I mean, and just to listening, really to listen hard, and to I think it's great in a way that we can A/B so well between music that you love and music that you make in that way, especially with mixing and mastering. And I've always felt really challenged that it all comes from passion. You've got to be really passionate about it, and because of the passion that I feel, and that feeling that I feel when I'm listening to other music and what it does for me, you know, it's my therapy, it's everything. You know, music for me has always been everything. Then that is what fuels me to do the same with music that comes to me, that people maybe want mastered or mixed or for recording. It's just all about the passion, I think, and then and also accepting that you're going to be a bit of a social misfit for a while because of the amount of hours and time that are required to become good and to know your gear, and for it to be, like I say, for it to just to feel like a creative tool and not too boggled by the science, art science of things. You know, you've got to, but you know, it's just that total dedication and the laser focus that you really need.